رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي واجعل لي وزيرا من أهلي. Another short yet beautiful example of Quran's beautiful language. These are very two similar verses, one from chapter 22, Surah Hajj, and another from chapter 31, Surah Luqman, verse number 30. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. ذلك, if I'll read the Arabic and you will see the similar, if you don't know Arabic, you will feel that they're almost very similar. ذلك بأن الله هو الحق وأن ما يدعون من دونه هو الباطل وأن الله هو العلي الكبير. And Surah Luqman, almost the same words. ذلك بأن الله هو الحق وأن ما يدعون من دونه الباطل وأن الله هو العلي الكبير. You see, they're the same, except there is just one addition of this one extra word in Surah Hajj, which is huwa. It's just an emphasis. It's an emphasis saying that it is it. It is it. Just emphasizing this huwa. There is no, in Surah Hajj it says, that is because it is God alone who is the truth, and whatever they invoke besides Him is, here the way they have shown the stress in translation is sheer falsehood. It is sheer falsehood, and it is God who is the Most High, the Most Great. In Surah Luqman, it says this because the God is truth, and what they invoke besides Him is false. There's no stress on the fact that it is false. Only it is false. It's making a statement, and that He is the Most High, the Most Great. So now, why do we have this difference, right? So why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put this extra emphasis in Surah Al-Hajj chapter 22, saying that what they invoke besides Him, that is the falsehood, that is sheer falsehood, but in Surah Luqman there is no emphasis? The simple answer is the entire context and the background in which Surah Hajj talks about is related. A lot of times it talks about the false gods and they're worshipping the false gods, right? So for example, in verse number 11 onwards, where it says there are some who serve God with unsteady faith. If good comes their way, they're satisfied, but not, they lose their way, etc. Instead of God, they call upon. Now they're actively calling upon what can neither harm them nor help them, that is straying away, or invoke one whose harm is closer than his help. They're actively calling upon it. Likewise, verse number 26 of Surah Hajj says, when we showed Abraham the site of the house, saying, do not assign partners to me. Do not assign partners to me. And then verse number 30, which says, shun the filth of idolatrous beliefs and practices, and shun false utterances. Devote yourself to God and assign Him no partners, for the person who does is like someone who has been hurled down from the skies and snatched by the birds. And then finally, there are two more verses. One verse 71, which says, yet beside God they serve that for which He has sent no authority on, and for which they have no knowledge, and the evildoers will have no help. And then finally, people, here's an illustration, so listen carefully. Those you call on besides God could not, even if they all combined all their forces, create a fly. So the context is talking about calling on false gods. Invoke those who cannot, instead of God they call upon what can neither harm or benefit. So when the context is about calling upon false gods, committing partners, making partners with God, so it was appropriate to put a focus. Whatever they invoke is sheer falsehood besides God, right? Whatever else they invoke is sheer falsehood. There's a stress, huwal batil. But in Surah Luqman, when there is no stress, it says whatever they invoke besides Him is false. It does not focus that is the falsehood. Surah Luqman does not put a lot of focus upon false gods. So for example, you see the most it goes is Luqman simply advising his son, oh my son, do not attribute any partners to God. That's it. Or if it will talk about it, it will say, when they are told follow what God has sent down, they say we shall follow what we saw our forefathers following. Yeah? No direct talk about following or invoking false gods. In fact, in the surah, it's the other way around. When they ask them who created the skies and the heavens, they say God. So it doesn't really focus about it. So it was enough to say whatever they invoke besides Him, min dunihil batil, it is false, not it is the sheer false. Because you think about it, somebody talking about the wrong thing, and he's constantly talking about the wrong thing. So when it's your turn to refute it, what will you say? You say whatever you just said, that is the falsehood. It's just like that in Surah Hajj. He talks about the falsehood and then says that is the falsehood. That is in fact the falsehood, right? That's more appropriate to say huwa al-batil instead of just saying it is false. It should focus on that, subhanAllah. So that's focus. And these things, now that I'm done with it, we should always keep in mind the context of these miracles. The context of all these miracles is that this Qur'an, the way it was revealed, verses were not revealed all together, the entire book, over a period of time. And then look at the miracle for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to select that this specific verse is to go in chapter 22, and this verse in Surah Luqman is to go into chapter 31, Surah Luqman, and to select this to be placed among those verses, and those verses to be placed among those verses, and then the Quran not to be changed for the last 14 centuries. We don't have the first century version of the Quran, then the second century edition, and the third century edition. No, the Quran has been the same throughout. This is what makes it miraculous, right? So may God give us complete conviction in the Quran as the word of God. Subhanallah wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.